Hello.
Hey Joe, how are you?
Very good, sir. Thank you so much.
I just want to test this because I am now on yet another new computer and another webcam, and hopefully this will work.
I can hear you loud and clear, Michelle.
Thank you.
Chris.
You definitely have a crystal clear image going there too. It's quite the nice setup. Joe, on the other hand, looks like he rubbed Vaseline on the lens.
It's weird. I didn't do anything, but it has the blurred background. I didn't touch it. Kind of weird. It's all no, it's all good, man. Sorry.
Joe, when you get closer to the camera, you're clearer. Oh, yeah, definitely. You're more fuzzy way back. Yeah.
No problem. I will adjust. I'll stop my video and I'll fix it, guys. Sorry. So sorry.
Oh, I was just making fun of you, Joe.
No, I'm very sensitive tonight. Extremely sensitive. No, it's good. No worries. You know me. So are you the chairperson starting now today?
Not until you guys vote on it later on today. Still the John Burns show.
There you go. Hey, so how do you do the video stuff, the background thing? I thought there was a setting I could do that with.
It's somewhere under video options. And I think you can change your virtual background. It allows me to do it sometimes, and then other times it doesn't for some reason. So
yeah, like tonight I can't do it. This is weird. The settings. No. Oh boy.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for coming. I'm Laura Arsenault. I'm the ARB administrator. I just saw that John came on as an attendee, so I promoted him to panelist. So as soon as he's ready to go, we can go ahead and start.
Okay, well, good evening, everyone. I'm John Burns. I'm the chair, as of today at least, of the Fairfax County Architectural Review Board. And I would like to welcome you all to the December 10th, 2020 meeting of the ARB. In order to conduct this meeting in a virtual environment, we have to go through a series of motions to establish that we can all hear each other and speak to each other, and that there is a necessity to conduct this meeting virtually. And so I have this to offer to you. To conduct this meeting wholly electronically and to effectuate both the emergency procedures authorized by FOIA, and the ARB needs to make certain findings and determinations for the record. It's a bit cumbersome, so I ask you in advance for your patience. Number one, audibility of members' voices. First, because each member of this ARB is participating in this meeting from a separate location, we must verify that a quorum of members is participating and that each member's voice is clear, audible, and at an appropriate volume for all the other members. Accordingly, I'm going to conduct a roll call and ask each ARB member participating in this meeting to state your name and the location for which you are participating. I ask that each of you pay close attention to assure that you can hear each other's voice. Following this roll call, we will vote to establish that every member can hear every other member. So, ARB member Aubrey.
Yes, I am here this evening, and I am in my residence in Alexandria, Virginia.
Okay, ARB member Daniel.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, I'm here at my residence in Reston, and I can hear everyone well so far.
ARB member Huang.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, this is Samantha. I am at Reston, my home. I can hear every member well.
Thank you. Member Steve Kolinsky, please.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Burns. Here in my office in Alexandria, I could hear everybody fine.
Okay. ARB member Murray.
This is Elise Murray. I'm at my residence in Vienna, and so far I can hear everyone.
Thank you. ARB member Notkins. Okay, hearing no response, move on. ARB member Orr.
Hi, this is Kay. I have no audio. I mean, I can see y'all, but my camera's not working, but I can hear everyone well. I'm at my home.
Thank you. ARB member Plumpy.
Yes, I am here in my residence in Fairfax Station, Virginia, wrapping presents at the same time. Thank you.
Okay, ARB member Zellman, please.
Yes, I'm present in my residence in Burke, Virginia, and I hear everyone just fine.
Okay, thank you. Again, I'm John Burns. I am at my home, and I can hear everyone else just fine. So at this point, I will pass.
Mr. Burns, sorry.
Yes.
Can you call for Mr. McReynolds, please?
Oh, he wasn't on my list here. And where's my pen?
I know, and that's my apologies for that.
Okay. He's going to hate us. This is the second month in a row we've left him off the list. Mr. McReynolds.
I'm not sure he's here, but I wanted you to call for him just in case.
Okay, okay. I have penned in his name. Thank you. Okay, at this point, I will pass the virtual gavel to the vice chair so that I may be heard to make the requisite motions. I move that each member's voice is adequately heard by each other member of the ARB, and I will virtually pass the gavel.
We have a motion. Is there a second?
Second it.
Seconded by Mr. Kolinsky. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Hi.
All those opposed indicate by saying nay. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Number 2, quorum of the ARB members. As determined by the roll call, 10, is that right, Laura? Or 9?
9.
9, okay. 9 members of the ARB are present and therefore satisfy the ARB quorum minimum. The ARB bylaws state that a minimum of 6 members are required to determine a quorum. It is so moved.
All right, there's a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second, I believe, by Mr. Kolinsky. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed, nay. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Okay, third motion, need for an electronic meeting. Third, having established that each member's voice may be heard by every other member, we must next establish the nature of the emergency that compels these emergency procedures, the fact that we are meeting electronically, what type of electronic communication is being used, and how we have arranged for public access to this meeting. Therefore, I move that the state of emergency caused by the COVID-19 pandemic makes it unsafe for this ARB to physically assemble and unsafe for the public to physically attend any such meeting, and that as such, FOIA's usual procedures, which require the physical assembly of the ARB and the physical presence of the public, cannot be implemented safely or practically. I further move that the ARB may conduct this meeting electronically through WebEx, a county virtual meeting platform, and available for access through the ARB county website or through phone at 1-408-418-9388 with access code 179-507-7017. and that access code is specifically verified for this meeting tonight. It is so moved.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There is a motion. Do we have a second?
Second it.
But seconded by Ms. Murray. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed indicate by saying nay. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Number 4, need to dispense with FOIA's usual procedures to assure continuity in government and continue operations. Finally, it is next required that all of the matters addressed on today's agenda are statutorily required or necessary to continue operations in the discharge of this board's lawful purposes, duties, and responsibilities. It is so moved.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Ms. Wong. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 All those opposed indicate by saying nay. Hearing none, the motion passes.
Thank you again, Mr. Daniel. 5th motion, public comments. The ARB needs to determine how long each member of the public will be able to speak during the public comment periods. The public will be allowed to comment after the consent agenda items and after each action item as a standard ARB practice. I move that each member of the public will have 3 minutes to speak.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have a motion. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Mr. Kalinsky. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
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 Aye. All those opposed by saying nay. Hearing none, the motion passes. We're getting real good at this, John. Here's your gavel back.
Thank you. I received the gavel back. Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. As is the tradition at the beginning of each ARB meeting, we read the statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts that is in our authorizing ordinance. And tonight, Mr. Kalinsky has graciously agreed to read that for us. Mr. Kalinsky. Mr. Kalinsky, you may be on mute still.
I'm having computer problems.
Don't we all? Yes.
Okay, can you hear me, Mr. Burns?
Yes.
Okay, unfortunately, I don't have the statement of intent up in front of me right now.
Okay, so
Sorry, wasn't prepared for this.
okay, there is a backstory here. Mr. Kalinsky has some childcare responsibilities tonight. He wasn't sure that he'd be able to make the opening of the meeting, and Laura is very kindly posting this. Can you enlarge it?
Well, I have it here for me now.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sorry to put you on the spot.
Not a problem. Okay. Statement of purpose and intent of historic overlay districts. Historic overlay districts are created for the purpose of promoting the general welfare, education, economic prosperity, and recreational pleasure of the public through the perpetuation of those general areas or individual structures and premises that have been officially designated by the Board of Supervisors as having historical, cultural, architectural, or archaeological significance. Regulations within such districts are intended to protect against destruction of or encroachment upon such areas, structures, and premises, to encourage uses which will lead to their continuance, conservation, and improvement in a manner appropriate to the preservation of the cultural, social, economic, political, architectural, or archaeological heritage of the county, to prevent creation of environmental influences adverse to such purposes, and to assure that new structures and uses within such districts will be in keeping with the character to be preserved and enhanced.
Thank you, Mr. Kalinsky. Appreciate that. First item of business tonight is approval of our agenda. I would entertain a motion for approval of the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I so move approval of the agenda.
Okay. We have a motion by Ms. Aubrey. Is there a second?
I can second that motion.
By Mr. Kalinsky. Thank you very much. I will call the question. All in favor of approval of the agenda as presented, say aye.
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 All opposed, say nay. Motion carries. We have an agenda. Okay, Laura, do we have guests to recognize tonight or introduce?
I think most of the guests are here for either an action workshop or a presentation item.
Okay, well, then move right along. There is no consent calendar item tonight for action, and so I'll move straight into items for action. And the first one is ARB 20-LOR-09, proposal for site plan modifications and landscaping near buildings W13 and W15, located at 9514 and 9517 Workhouse Way in Lorton, tax map 106-4, lot 0058. And Ms. Alvarez of Samaha Associates is going to represent it to us tonight. Now, before she starts, I should note for everyone that following the November meeting, at which we offered to consult with the county staff and with the designers for the project, Mr. Joe Plumpy and I met twice with those folks and made some progress in discussing the concerns that the ARB had and talking about possible changes. And one of the things I asked them to do, which I see they have done, is to give us a broader context and understanding of the project that we're going to review. And so they have added slides to give us that context and understanding. So Ms. Alvarez, with that introduction, the floor is yours.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Burns, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So I hope that everybody can see my screen. I'm not sure that that's showing up at the moment. Can everybody see my screen?
So far, we only see your name. You haven't shared the screen yet, or at least it hasn't showed up.
I'm not having the option to share it. Oh, okay,
Yep,
here
sorry,
it is.
Jenny. Yep, I just sent it to you.
Okay, great. Thank you. So I hope everybody can see my screen now.
Jenny, it looks like it's just black right now.
Oh, that's so. It on my end, it says that the screen is being shared.
Okay. Do you have multiple screens?
That tends to happen when you share your screen and then you switch to something else. You have to switch between each document.
Okay. How about now?
Nothing has changed on our end. We're still seeing a black screen.
Just bear with me for a moment, please. I'm not sure why it's not doing that. It says it's sharing.
Jenny, maybe if you want to stop sharing and try again, because if you change, like if Nicole said, if you change documents, sometimes it just turns off.
Okay.
And while we're waiting for the visuals to come up, if anybody who's not speaking would mute so we don't have potential for feedback, that may help us to hear the presentation more clearly. Thank you. I will do the same.
Is it showing now?
No, it's not.
No, Jenny, maybe we can do what we did last time where we can pull it up for you. Let me
All right, thank you.
All right, can everybody see that?
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Okay,
Thanks.
just let me know when you want to go to the next slide.
It seems like it's zoomed in a little bit. I think if you do fit width, might fit the whole screen. Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I just want to bring to your attention that Mr. McReynolds was able to join us, and he has noted it in the chat.
Thank you, Laura. It seems like that it's finally showing correctly. So I also wanted to make sure that we have, and I'm sorry, I don't see everyone's, I don't see the list, the entire list of attendees, but I believe we were also hoping to have Eileen on the call. Is she?
I'm here, Jenny.
Okay, great. Thank you
Good
so
morning,
much.
everyone. I'm going to start out the presentation tonight. I'm the project manager for Fairfax County Public Works for W13, W15 building and site project. In response to the ARB's request for more information about the vision for the workhouse campus redevelopment, please note that the current action item is a follow-on action to a June 2019 proffer interpretation for the campus. The proffer interpretation involved new uses added in a minor variation to proffers, and the new uses included a craft beverage use for tasting rooms, which may be applied at W13 and W15 in the future, and a small-scale production use for indoor agriculture. Now let's look at this first slide. The campus redevelopment has been led by the Workhouse Campus Steering Committee, which is a partnership of board-appointed members, including Workhouse Arts Foundation staff, Fairfax County staff, and county leadership. The committee has been working together to realize the site's potential and achieve development goals at the campus. Redevelopment goals for the campus are consistent with the 2010 approved development plan and are aimed at revitalizing and activating the campus by attracting and engaging visitors. Placemaking efforts for the campus support the existing mixed-use arts destination and foster a historic community with a new purpose through the creation of public spaces that promote activities, community, and well-being. The campus is also intended to be self-sustaining in terms of maintenance, security, and funding of operations. So with this county renovation of W13 and W15 and the associated plaza and streetscape improvements, a major step in placemaking efforts will be taken. We can move on to the next slide. This next slide outlines the approved development plan uses for the campus, and most of these uses are going to be familiar to you. The blue locations indicate arts, museum, and cultural center uses, and the brown locations indicate event and performing arts uses. However, I want to point out specifically the bright blue locations at the north end and southeast portions of the campus, which indicate multifamily residential uses for both market rate and affordable housing. And finally, I want to note the future private development uses indicated for W13 and W15, which will be realized by future tenants. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Jenny Alvarez and her team, and they're going to walk you through the revised plaza and streetscape design. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Eileen. So now for a quick recap of the background of the historic district. The workhouse is part of the DC Workhouse and Reformatory Historic District. Specifically, the Lorton Workhouse campus is located at the southwest end of the district. You all may be also familiar with the penitentiary site at the north, and Ox Road is on the west end over there. On the right, you'll see an enlarged campus plan with buildings 13 and 15 on the west. Next, please. So as Eileen mentioned, we are trying to give this site new life, and historically, this is a very large campus, but it has a great potential, and we have between buildings 13 and 15 a very prominent site along the frontage of Ox Road, which acts as a gateway to the campus. Historically, it was one large lot, and eventually Workhouse Way was built in between buildings 13, 15, and the rest of the campus. Some of the changes that you'll see presented today, proposed, for the site work, are with this in mind, trying to connect with the campus as it was historically. Next, please. So looking more closely at the campus here, and specifically the site for the site improvements, you see buildings 13 and 15 there on the left, between Ox Road on the west side, and the multi-purpose path that runs along Ox Road in the VDOT right-of-way. The Workhouse Way on the east of the green space there connects to the main campus quad in the center of the left there. If we look at the images on the top right, you'll see building W15 looking south from the green space, and on the right you'll see building 13 on the north. The site slopes gently from Ox Road on the left side toward Workhouse Way, and the rest of the campus on the right. And that last view there is looking into the campus. You'll see some of Workhouse Way there on the front, which is what we're also trying to improve and enhance to make that pedestrian connection. And some of the artwork is on display there from the current tenant, the Workhouse Art Foundation. Next, please. So here's just a view of the existing conditions plan, and please bear with us as the orientation rotates a bit here. North is to your right. The location for our project, the main portion of our site here, is the open lawn there between buildings 13 and 15. Ox Road is on the top of the page there with a multi-purpose trail. And you see the main campus courtyard, what we call the quad, down toward the center at the bottom there, across Workhouse Way. Next, please. And since this is a rather long site, we'll have a portion of the site shown here of the intersection at the north end, where Ox Road intersects with Workhouse Road. Next, please. So this is an overall view of the site, and clearly we're trying to show, or I hope it shows clearly, the right-of-way for the VDOT right-of-way on the frontage along Ox Road, which includes the multipurpose path. It comes around on the north end of the lot, and where the trail starts at those two intersections, we're looking to do an accent that will emphasize the pedestrians and the visitors' arrival to the site and sort of bring life and interest to this historical resource. We'd like to activate that and get people's attention as they're driving by. So we're doing small little accent enhancements on that trail. The interventions at the corners are in these enlarged plans there that you see, with a small note for a seating area and some freestanding signage. Along the trail, you also have in the red dots some locations for historical information signs that will provide some background on the history of the site. I believe some of the on the center, we could talk about the view, some of the views that you could have seen as you look into the site historically, and some of those changes that have happened over time. And I believe that was one of the ideas that was brought to us during the last presentation, and would certainly like to make that a point to bring those historical information opportunities into the trail. Next, please. So here's a view of the proposed work overall, taking an aerial view from the Ox Road side, looking into the site across that trail with the accent paving and some of the landscape improvements that we're trying to we've revised these per the comments from the last presentation to make them a little bit more subdued and still being an attractive space for different events, or even just daily visitors as they pass through the site. And we also want to make that connection across Workhouse Way into the campus with some paving, so that drivers will slow down and pedestrians will have that visual connection. Historically, the materials would be more appropriate as well, rather than the current asphalt road. And at the bottom there, you'll see what we're trying to accomplish there with the view from Ox Road into the site, having the campus have more of a prominent gateway with the landscape and the two entries and the connections to the trail. Next, please. Now, taking a closer look at the actual site of what we like to call the plaza, but now it's more of a boardwalk, if you will, that connects what we'd like to have as two small seating areas that are flanking the paths that connect from the trail to the rest of the campus, with Workhouse Way on the bottom of the page there. As I mentioned earlier, the site does slope gently from Ox Road into Workhouse Way, and there's an existing drain there that we're relocating to the bioretention area on the west of the boardwalk. the goal here is to create a lively space for people to interact and mingle between these two spaces. As Eileen mentioned, we're looking to have either a small microbrewery, or it could be also some other business space, maybe some restaurant space. And this could be used also during events, just sort of a casual space that people can enjoy, overlook the landscape, and connect to the trail. Next, please. Now, the idea behind the landscape was to really create a special moment as you're on this boardwalk, as you're enjoying it with your family, friends, and at the same time, kind of bring some interest as from the side as for drivers and passersby and any pedestrians along the trail. But we have toned down some of the elements to not make it as distracting from the historical aesthetic of the view shed. And we're maintaining that open view into the site with the trees just flanking on the sides. And all the plantings are low shrubbery. We're being very mindful of the heights of the landscape, mostly native vegetation. And we have reduced the amount of perennials on the site. We're being also very conscientious of what that would be maintenance-wise for the county, because we certainly want this to be a successful endeavor for years to come. At the bottom there of the site, of the page, you'll see the interventions at the intersections with the small entry notes and the signage into the site. We have some landscape along the trail, and again, this is in the review with the VDOT. We're working with them to make this improvements at the moment. Also, at the last presentation, I believe one of the comments was regarding the prominence of the dumpster locations as you come into the parking lots. We have revised these so that they're a little bit further away from the entries into the parking areas. And they are now closer to vegetation that will buffer that view. I'm not sure if perhaps Eileen or our landscape architect, Mike Nord, might want to say anything about the concept overall. Not sure if Mike is on the call.
Hello? Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay, great. I must have been muted before when I was trying to talk. So I just want to, I'll just go over a couple of things. Want to thank Mr. Plumpy and Mr. Burns for giving us a couple of hours of their time over a couple of weeks. One of a couple of the big moves that were made on this project were that the two small gathering spaces, the one on the north side and the one on the south side of the entrance, were slid forward towards Workhouse Way to be within 8 feet of the existing brick that is at Workhouse. We looked at and studied sliding the entire boardwalk forward as well to be coincidental with that same line, and made the boardwalk actually narrower to give a little bit of interest in the different size, different shapes, and make the boardwalk just less prominent. What happens when we move that towards Workhouse, it did not allow the water to go underneath of the boardwalk. One of the big items that you'll see on here is, if you remember the last time we spoke with you, the stormwater management, the bioretention was between the boardwalk and Workhouse Way. It has now been moved to behind the boardwalks. Then now the stormwater is between the shared use path, Ox Road, and the boardwalk. So a little bit, actually, it's a big change in the overall. And like we said, we tried to bring it forward, and the idea that when we were talking as a group was the idea of making this boardwalk and this these smaller gathering spaces interact more with Workhouse and make this a space where that they could, if you had larger gatherings, those two would work together. But again, we at the end of the day, we had to slide the boardwalk back further than what we were originally looking at in some of our work sessions. Just again, to get the water underneath and to get a little area, a planting zone that's in there. So it is a little bit of a change as well. Plant material has been toned down substantially to some shrubs, more native grasses, but a reduction substantially in the perennials and the maintenance side. So it doesn't look as dead, if you will, in the wintertime, a little bit more four-season interest. So those are some of the bigger changes on the site overall.
Thank you, Mike. And I also do want to point out that the previous design had been also presented to DHR, and they recently have approved the previous plan. Of course, as Mike mentioned, it seems like a big change landscape-wise. In general, though, the concept is fairly the same, except that we have changed the boardwalk dimensions to make this space a little bit more intimate, more casual, if you will. And I believe overall it is less distracting to the historical aesthetic, or at least that's our goal. And with that, I think we could move on to the next one, please. So to illustrate some of the ideas with the boardwalk and what Mike was trying to achieve with the landscape, we have this project as a precedent that we wanted to illustrate, and what we're trying to accomplish here is a local project, the Meriwether District Office Complex, in case any of you are aware of it, has maybe not the same materials or same system for the boardwalk, but a similar scenario with an elevated walk over a small shrubbery that is meant to withstand the cold weather. And this is actually a set of photos that were taken fairly recently, I believe a week or so ago. And so you can see they're doing rather well. We're not having any it doesn't seem like they're having issues with drainage or ponding of any sort. And that's sort of the goal with the proposed site improvements here. Next, please. And taking a look at the overall grade changes on the site, this is a little different from last time in the sense that, as Mike explained, we have shifted the boardwalk and the seating areas more toward Workhouse Way, allowing for the bioretention area to be on the west. So it's more of a gentle drop into that landscape area, which it's a nice background there for the pedestrians as they look into the site, but it's not as distracting. It just sort of low into the site, and something nice for the people on the boardwalk to look down onto. It is also much more open. If you look at what the previous section looked like, this allows for better maintenance, more accessibility to the bioretention area, and in general, it should be a lot more maintenance friendly. Next, please. This is another view into the bioretention area and the entry gateways. Some of the materiality for the entry gateways, as was presented before, it hasn't really changed. We have some of that industrial prison-like aesthetic, but with a warm touch with the landscape and the benches, which are now facing into the site. We want this to be as welcoming as possible. We have some very minimal lighting, only at the entries to the site. And again, this is being submitted for concept at the moment for the concept approval, and we're in discussions with the VITA folks to make this work. At the image on the bottom right corner, you'll see some of the ornamentation locations that we're planning, which will be decided at a later time. But the idea is to really celebrate the arrival at this site and get the visitors' attention without it being distracting from the character of the site overall. Next, please. And these are just some additional views of the plaza in general, looking at the landscape on the top left with the two seating areas flanking the boardwalk. The workhouse way on the right, you'll see, has now a more simple color palette. We have simplified that to make it more of a serious toned down version of that connection to the workhouse campus. The landscape, as Mike explained, in general has been toned down with some of those colors and the heights. And I believe the biggest difference you'll see is the removal of the retention wall that we previously had along the west side of the boardwalk. Now it's open. You can visually look across that, and there is no obstruction, no seating wall. Now it's more of a moment as you come across rather than this grand event space. So hopefully it will be more in keeping with the historical character of the site. Next, please. Okay. And then we just get into some of this details for the furnishing and the lighting. This is basically what we had before, just very minimal integrated lighting into some of the features. And we'll work with the campus to try and match the existing lighting temperatures and make that as warm and historically appropriate as possible. And I believe that's really about it. There are some additional details that you can see in your packages that we sent. But if you have any questions or comments at this point, I would like to hear that. And really appreciate your time today. And Mr. Blumpy, especially with Mr. Burns, for discussing these improvements with us.
Well, thank you, Ms. Alvarez. I appreciate the more thorough and complete and detailed presentation this month. This is an action item, so one of the first things I will do is to ask if there's any member of the public who would like to address the ARB on this action item. If you'd please indicate by raising your hand, putting a question in the chat, or otherwise letting us know. I'll give you a few seconds to do that.
Mr. Burns, I don't see anyone raising their hand or any chat messages.
Right, nor do I. Okay, so then I'll move along, and as we've done in past months, we'll just simply go through a roll call of ARB members who are present tonight and ask for their comments and questions. So first up, alphabetically, is Ms. Aubrey.
trying to get myself unmuted here. I'd like to thank the applicant for the proposal. It looks really well designed, and it's a beautiful looking entryway to the property. So I think it will, it's very inviting from the street, whether you're in a vehicle or whether you're on a bicycle or on foot. Earlier, my only comment at last month's meeting was that I was fearful that the bioretention facility might become a mosquito magnet. And I think that the way that it's been reconfigured, that my concern seems to be no longer valid. So if you could just kind of verify that, that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Alvarez, do you want to respond to the question about potential for mosquito breeding?
Well, it sounds like it's no longer a concern, but I do believe that we have tried to minimize the potential for that by opening up the bioretention area in general. It doesn't start out from underneath the boardwalk anymore. It is open for any necessary maintenance and cleaning, and with the slope being fairly level in the center area, there's a lot of space for it to absorb and dry, and I really don't believe that this has been an observed problem in other similar facilities. But I'm sure that perhaps Mike or Tim may like to speak to that as well. It would be, I think, more informed to explain the issue.
I'm not sure that the civil engineer is on.
Okay, well,
but the microbioretention does have an underdrain system with it, so there will not be water. The civil is ensuring us that. So that's the short answer.
Sorry. This is Eileen Gastiger, and I just want to point out that we did review this design with our with MSMD, who will be maintaining the site, and we made them aware of the concerns, and they did not voice any concerns with regard to mosquito issues.
Okay, thank you. I appreciate the answer there. Mr. Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate the applicant's ability to come back to us and work with yourself and Mr. Plumpy. I don't really have many major concerns with the central area being proposed. I still think the fascinators, or whatever they're called, at each of the ends along Ox Road, I still don't quite grasp their concept to grab people, but they are relatively minor, and they don't really seem, to my mind, to distract from the historic property. Personally, I'm not seeing a lot of folks stopping there when they would more likely stop here. The bench was the thing that kind of perplexed me, but beyond that, I don't have any other comments.
Thank you, Mr. Daniel. Ms. Huang?
Yes, I do not have any further comment. I also want to applaud for the change, particularly on the bold work. I see the section elevation BB, and I'm convinced that the space would have a really decent quality. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Klinsky.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burns. I do appreciate the applicant's efforts to work and respond to the board's comments and work with the two members of the board. I do like how it's more open through, and you still retain kind of my favorite feature, which are those little entry signs. That aside, the dumpster areas on the two opposite sides of the buildings 13 and 15, the one to the right on page LP 1.0, landscape 1.0. So I guess that's to the north side. that seems to be a very logical place that you were able to locate that structure. But the one next to Workhouse Way, at least from a practical matter, seems to take away the turnaround spot for the cars backing in and backing out, as well as it's going to be fairly prominent as you enter the site. I don't have a good solution for you, but I was wondering if you had studied any other options or any places kind of consistent with what you did on the other side.
Jenny, before you speak, we do have the civil engineer. I misspoke. The civil engineer is on, but he doesn't have the option to be able to speak.
They just gave me the option.
Sorry about that.
Yeah, we looked at possibly doing the same thing on the W15 parking lot as we did on W13. So we do have the potential to provide a pad. You know, we lose a couple of spaces, but it's a campus-wide parking situation.
Yeah.
But we could do something very similar to what you saw on the W13, which was the parking lot on the right for the dumpster. There's not many areas, you know, being a restaurant and a potential brewery, we do need these dumpsters to accommodate each building, but we really don't have any other space close enough to provide them. But if we do what was done on W13, like Jenny had said, and push it back, no matter where we have it on the turnaround right now, we're still going to lose a couple of spaces. So it would be something very similar.
Understood. Yeah, I know there's no easy solution. It just seems.
Yeah, there's not.
So it just seems that maybe if you work something similar to W13 over at W15, that it may solve it by pushing it out of the parking lot.
Yeah, that's a very good suggestion. On W13, there's actual overflow parking located to the right, so we couldn't extend it into that grass area. So yeah, we can consider that and look at the turning movements for dumpster pickup.
That would be my comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, Mr. McReynolds, thank you for joining us.
Yeah, sorry for being a little late. Had some problems logging on. Anyway, I think that I think this is a beautiful improvement to the facility, and I think that it will be it's a much needed upgrade, and I really like it. So I think we should move forward with it.
Okay, thank you, sir. Thank you, Ms. Murray.
I don't really have anything to add. I think Mr. Kalinsky's points about the dumpster on the W15 side are good. I'm very, very happy to see how much progress is made. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Orr.
Hi, thank you for coming back to us and for pushing your design to make it more intimate, open, and less distracting. I am not into the intervention seating node idea. That whole thing escapes me as how necessary it is. And but other than that, I think y'all have really captured our concerns. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Plumpy.
Thank you, Mr. Burns. Well, Jenny and Mike, thank you so much for coming back, and thank you for listening to both Mr. Burns and I, which you guys, by your presentation, has proved to be very good listeners, and hopefully we weren't too critical, but I think it all ended up as a much better solution. I thank you for your patience with us as well. And so I do have some comments, and they're all constructive, I believe, but I want to start out with Mr. McDaniel's comment with the two end, I'm going to call it the end caps, little mini plazas, so to speak, the circles entering the pathway. I kind of agree with him. Are they necessary? Not necessarily, but if you do them, you do them. But I think it's really everybody wants to gravitate towards the middle here. But I'm not going to say yay or nay to them. But I just think I don't know if they are pretty. I shouldn't say fussy, but there's something unique. And again, I think maybe all in the middle is better, but I'll say out that argument. But I think the trash enclosure thing that Mr. McClunkey has suggested, I think it makes a lot of sense to do something similar to what I did on W13's parking lot. So getting into what I'll introduce is I have a few questions. Underneath the boardwalk, what is underneath the boardwalk? Gravel, mulch, just dirt, or what? And Mike, can you answer that, or Jenny, whoever, please?
I'll probably leave that up to Tim right now, the civil.
Yeah, we'll mulch it.
Okay. The question is would you, since I guess we get gravel. That's one thing I was just going to get at, because gravel kind of free draining mulch, and they always stay moist underneath there. Just I'm trying to make that as dryable as possible if the water feet onto it. And
understood.
So
I agree with the gravel.
What's that?
I said I agree with the gravel.
Okay, gravel's good. And then what is your elevation of the storm management facility? Is it contour 50, 54, 56, or what?
The boardwalk is at 56.
Okay.
We need
there's a 54 underneath it, so.
Correct. We need 2 feet clearance for the support structures and the boardwalk and beaming to be clear. So we do have to drop down a couple of feet prior to the boardwalk.
No, fine. I'm sorry. Let me ask the question differently. What would you consider the biomass facility? What contour is from a contour moving down to the bioretention facility? Is it is it 2, 3, 54, 52, 53, or what?
We're at 253 on the Ox Road side.
Okay.
And it's a fairly flat grass area, if you will, to help assist with the level 2 bioretention facility, and then it drops down 3 to 1. You can see on the West Ox side we have about a 5-foot drop. Each contour you're seeing is 1 foot.
Yeah, no. But the Ox Road, that's high, and then it slopes down. So it's a 3 to 1 slope. I think it's a 3 to 1 slope going down to the.
Correct. Yeah, and we need that clearance for our storm system.
No, that's fine. I'm not complaining.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to understand that. So the question is in some of your elevations, some of your practice sketches, and even your landscape rendering, I thought, it shows the planting kind of covering all the 3 to 1 slope. I'm just wondering, could we extend that planting of what you have beyond the entry columns? Because it shows it in some of your perspectives, like on sheet A10.2. It shows that the landscape would go beyond those columns, which I think is a betterment, because then all the 3 to 1 slopes have to be planted. So now you see right now that exhibit there doesn't show the contours very well, but I guess it would go out probably like all right, the bottom rendering there shows it really close to the brick walkway. I know it's a perspective, and I'm just thinking it would be better, in my opinion, to move it up. Is there any issue by doing that? Because it's either mowing a 3 to 1 slope or having the plantings kind of creep up the hill a little bit. There we go. That one shows it probably more better. It's bad English. A lot better. So just that was a comment I wanted to bring up. So, is there any issue with doing that? Just a thought.
I don't think so. I'm looking at the at our planting plan, just the black line that we have. I'm not sure if you guys have it or not, but we do have the planting at a minimum at the 53, and in most, I say 90% of it does go up to the 54. Right. But we're happy to, we can extend that. I was trying to pull it back, but we could definitely go up more, cover that 3 to 1 maybe.
Yeah.
Okay, sure.
Why, because then it was give the illusion that there's these plants, maybe it's half up. I'm just trying to, so that, from 123, you'll see the tops of plants and the boardwalk. So it looks like the boardwalk would be floating, I guess. That's what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to give you some kind of illusion, because the boardwalk is floating above the plants, so that when one looks to 123, the boardwalk railing maybe has tips of grasses in the middle of the handrail of the boardwalk. So
yeah.
There's a detail.
Yeah, and what we did was actually tried to put a few more of the shrubs up against the boardwalk as well, the winterberry and some things like that. So to get that elevation for you on the plan, and a few of the taller ornamental grasses as well.
Yeah, love it. So again, I'm just saying, maybe
sure.
Integrate the landscape up the slope, so to speak.
Sure. Okay, towards Ox Road, you're saying.
Yeah, towards Ox Road.
Okay,
so
sure.
Maybe to contour 50.
57 or so.
56 or so. 56.
Okay. So it almost wrap around like you're saying, and almost tie into the entry column. Okay, sure.
Yeah, and I think it'd be a lot easier to maintain too. So
right. Okay.
Down in that hole there. So that was fun. So since we're on grading, in front of buildings 15 and 13, W15 and W13, the original grading looks like it was a flat area. Now there's a slight depression there, about a foot or so. It looks like it's a sump that collects water and then it goes into stormwater facility. Looks like your downspouts connect underground to a drain, and in front of both those buildings into a yard drain, and then that yard drain is almost like a catch basin, which then connects the pipe laterally towards the boardwalk on both sides, which makes perfect sense. My question is this: from an operational standpoint, would the facility, or would the Lorton Arts facility want to have some kind of function from that building? So my thought would be, would you ever just grade that out a little bit and not have such a sump? From a civil engineering standpoint, do you need to hold the water a little bit before it goes into the storm management facility, or can you pipe it directly to it and not have those sumps in front of those two buildings?
Yeah, what we did is actually raise the boardwalk with this option.
Okay.
Since it's pushed closer to 123, it lends itself to be higher in elevation. So we raised that to a 256. And then the side plazas are raised as well.
Yeah,
what I failed to do for this presentation is raise those grass areas up in conjunction with raising the entire area up.
Thank you so much. So basically the sumps won't happen, you're saying that you're going to
correct, yeah. And that gives us a little more clearance, which is nice.
Yep.
So I mean, if need be, I can take care of that and provide it to whoever wants it to show.
Well,
because you're right. Right now, it drops down about a foot and a half to where the inlets are. So we're going to raise those.
Yeah, I mean, generally just to give us positive drainage away from the buildings like it is.
Exactly.
And then
minimal slope. Yes, sir.
Then connect your downspouts underground so that they can use that for overflow entertainment space. That's
exactly. And it's similar to, I've been out to the large plaza area, and they had those area drains, and it is very flat, and it lends itself to, to a lot of people coming together.
Exactly right. Perfect. Thank you. And then,
yes, sir.
One thing I would like to see, this is, I think everybody would applaud this, as butterfly box. Can you install some butterfly boxes in your planting area for the biofilter, and as well as purple martin boxes? The purple martins will eat your mosquitoes, number one, and any insects. They work like a charm. And there are purple martins in this area quite a bit. I have them on my property at Fairfax Station, 6 miles from here, as well as butterfly boxes. So butterfly boxes help pollinate the flowers. So you're trying to create like a pollinator garden. I mean, yes, you have bees and so forth, but the butterflies would be something encouraging. You do have plants already that will encourage that, like Joe Pye weed and so forth. So I think it's and purple cone flower in that. So encourage more. And I think a few of those would go a long ways here. And you can always make them very artistic in look if you like to. The artist can paint them pretty uniquely, so that they become sculpture elements in the planting as opposed to not, or just keep them just weathered wood. So just throwing it out there. But again, I would like to say I really like the design much better now. I'm glad you guys more comments to heart, and you will have my support wholeheartedly. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Plumpy. Mr. Zellman.
Not much to add. Thank you for all the changes that have been made and listening to everyone's comments, and it seems like it's gone in a good direction. And good luck.
Okay, my comments are it was a satisfying experience working directly with the design team and with the county staff. The two sessions that Mr. Plumpy put together, and the result of that I think is clearly presented in tonight's presentation. And virtually all of the concerns I had with the design as it existed at the November meeting have been eliminated. So I'm quite content with the project as it is now presented.
That's great. Thank you.
So we have now gone through and gotten comments. There were no comments from the public. We've heard comments from all of the ARB members. At this point, is there someone who would like to make a motion on this action item?
I would like to, but I don't have those motions that were sent around, so I apologize. So that's my problem. Hold on a second. Oh, I think I found them. Sorry.
This is on page 4 of 4 of the motions.
Thank you. I was just going to ask you what page.
I was going to say, Mr. Plumpy, given your comments, I was kind of hoping you would make the motion if you had any observations to add.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion for approval. I move that ARB recommend approval for ARB 20-LOR-09 located at 9514 and 9517 Workhouse Way, tax map 106-4, double print 1, double print 0058 in Laurel Hill Adaptive Reuse Area. For the proposal for modifications to landscaping and site modifications near buildings W13 and W15 as submitted and presented at the December 7th, 2020 ARB meeting with the following modifications to the presentation this evening. The applicant to consider expanding the planting to migrate closer to 123 in the bioretention facility to approximately contour 56, 57. The applicant also to level off the lawn areas in front of both building W15 and W13. And the applicant to install gravel underneath the boardwalk facility in lieu of mulch. And also the applicant to not required, but to strongly encourage the placement of butterfly houses and purple martin houses for the bioswale area, bioretention facility area, to encourage pollinating as well as mosquito control naturally by the purple martins. And that's what that's it.
Okay. I'd like to make one small correction on all of that. The meeting tonight is December 10th, not December 7th.
Holy mackerel. We should fire the secretary. Sorry.
Well, you read it as was written, but I just wanted to correct that for the record. Is there a second to the motion?
Seconded.
Okay. Mr. Daniel has seconded it. Are there any further discussion? Hearing none, I will call the question. All in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Aye. And all opposed, please say nay. Hearing no opposition, motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you all for coming and sticking with this and moving this forward.
And I'd like to say thanks to both Jenny and Mike and Tim. Thank you so much for accommodating our thoughts. It's really going to be good. I'm very proud of all you guys who have worked on this, and also the Fairfax County facility people as well. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your help.
Okay, that concludes the action items on tonight's agenda. And we will now move into items in workshops. And the first one is ARB 19-LOR-07 amendment, proposal for a restroom facility at the Laurel Hill Central Green Park, located at 8780 Furnace Road in Lorton, tax map 107-3, double paren 1, lot 19. And Mr. Don Gray is going to present the proposal tonight. Mr. Gray.
Hold on, Mr. Burns, I'm working on it. Okay, they should be good to go.
Mr. Burns.
Yes?
Thank you. All right. I wasn't sure. I was getting some feedback. So we thought it would be a good idea. I think Kelly Davis is our client there with the Park Authority. Would you like to say anything as far as introduction, Kelly?
Yeah, hi. I'm Kelly Davis. I'm a project manager for the Laurel Hill project here for the Fairfax County Park Authority. I am here to go through to present the bathroom building at the Central Green. As you remember, previously you approved picnic shelters and the development at the Central Green. And we finally have some funding available to install the restroom facilities. So what we would like to do tonight is to talk to you all about the restroom facility. When we came before you before, Mr. Plumpy gave us some ideas back in 2015 about what you all might like to see in a bathroom building. So we took that email that he sent back then from Bernal Park restrooms in San Francisco and use that kind of as a model. But before I let SWSG, Don Gray, and Zena present the bathroom building, if necessary, I can throw up three PowerPoint slides that just kind of gives you a visual of where the Central Green is in Laurel Hill and some of the character of what it looks like around it.
Okay, can you share your screen to show that?
Let's see. So this first slide is an overview of the Lorton, the historic National Register boundaries. The gray line that goes all around is the 500-acre boundary line of the National Register boundary for the Laurel Hill site. The Central Green is in the middle. It's the green, brighter green area in the middle. As you can see, Lorton Road runs right across the bright yellow line that runs across the screen. We are just to the north of that, and then above us is the reuse area to the north, which is the Liberty, Laurel Crest, the penitentiary area, and to the south is Workhouse Arts, which is the project you all just went through with the previous applicant. The next slide shows some views inside of the new facility that we just installed. So slide number one, or picture number one, is the view of what the picnic shelters look like. And number two is the area where the proposed bathroom is going to be. On the site plan on a sheet on the slide, you can see the proposed restroom location is in the red square. So number two is looking towards the red square. And then 3 and 4 is just a view of the picnic shelters and the open lawn to give you kind of an idea of the feel for the open area of this Central Green area. And then moving on to the surrounding landscape, again, starting with photo number 1, that is the view towards the penitentiary or the Liberty at Laurel Crest site. Number 2 is the view towards the turkey barn and the disc golf area. You can kind of see the silo on the turkey barn in the back there behind the trees. And then number 3 is the view towards Workhouse Way. That's Lorton Road there. And 4 is a view towards the equestrian center, and the 2 cars there are on Lorton Road westbound. And that silo, there's a silo at the equestrian center. That's the rectangular thing that you can see in the picture as well. And so that's pretty much to give you the overview, and then I'm going to give it to Dawn and or Zena to talk about the bathroom building. unless there's other questions.
Sure. So thank you, Kelly. This is Don. So Laura, could you give the screen to Zena? Ah, perfect. Thank you. So Zena's the architect, I'm the engineer, so I'm going to be quiet. So Zena, please present.
Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay.
Oh.
Do you see my screen?
It says yes. Yes.
Yes,
Now
I
we
can
can.
see.
Yes.
Okay, I have two drawings open, so that's why you see this first. Okay, so before I talk about my drawings, I want to say a little background about why we went with our design style, the new design style rather than historical. So as you see, the existing picnic shelters have are low profile structures and simple with basic look, which is intended by design so they would not overpower the site. So the site, this park needed some attraction, and this is what we're proposing. My second item is change by itself is inevitable. So that's why, since this historical site has significant importance historically and socially, we wanted to emphasize this significance by introducing a much needed facility that is compact in size. It's about a little bit more than 1,100 square feet, yet it's aesthetically pleasing and it complements the site without overpowering it, which makes the park an attraction to the neighborhood. And my third point is this type of design makes conversation between the historical site and the new building. So it brings life to the site, and it enhances the site, which emphasizes the significance of the historical of this site. So saying all this, I come to my design, to the drawings. So as Kelly explained, these are the three existing pavilions, picnic shelters, and this is our facility, the new facility, the restrooms. So as you can see, it's compact in size. It has two women's and men's and 3 family rooms in the back, and then a utility room that services all the building. And then on the north side, there is like a small picnic area with picnic tables. And on the south side, there's benches, just seating. I'm showing this section here through this area here, which shows the height of the building and the sloping roof towards the north. So the materials that we're using is, first we're using similar colors to what's on site already, and it doesn't like jump out or it just complements the nature there. So the materials that we're using is standing seam metal roofing. Let me just zoom in. Standing seam metal roofing and metal insulated metal panels all around, with some accent colors on this side and this side. This side here is the entrance, where when you come from the parking lot, this is what you see. And this building has, I showed clear story all around to introduce more light to the building, to the facility. Yeah, as you see, the material, I have some accent colors, same material but different colors on some sides, just to emphasize that this is where the bench area, seating area, and this is where the entrance. These are the elevations. So this is the main elevation. Here, you come from the parking lot. This is what you see: left women's, right men's, and then you go around the building. this is from the back where the family rooms are. They're all accessible. And this is where the seating area, the two picnic tables. And then this is the other side where benches are just for seating or maybe waiting for people who are waiting, others that are using the restrooms. This is the design. Yeah, that's it. I don't know if anyone has any questions or any comments.
Well, this is a workshop item.
Yeah.
And so there's no comments from the general public. So I will go through the roll call again and ask members of the ARB to provide comments and or questions. So Ms. Aubrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do like the positioning of the facility, kind of between the parking lot and the three existing pavilions. And I like the relationship between with the materials and colors between the two. So even though the architectural style is very different, I mean, it's more almost more mid-century modern, or maybe it made me think of Palm Springs, California when I first saw the photo. It didn't make me think of Virginia, but if you go with the more modern design, you may want to have more modern design in your tables and benches as well, because they don't seem to go well with the structure. And
Sure.
That's it.
Great.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Aubrey. Mr. Daniel.
Yeah, I don't have a lot to say on this one given its location, and I think it's more of a Holland Hills-esque style. I feel like I can see it as, but I don't really have any major objections to the design. I agree that the furnishings could be a little more contemporary with it itself, but I know there are lots of constraints with that. Given where it's located in the overlay district and its association here, or given where it's located, I don't have many concerns.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Huang?
I have no comment.
Okay. Mr. Kalinsky.
All right, thank you, Mr. Burns. First, I want to say I think it's an excellent plan programmatically. You fit some very good functions in, but also provided additional shelter. I could imagine a point where people are out there and it's raining and that there's a refuge being provided all around without actually having to duck into the bathroom itself, which is a nice touch. The agrarian nature of the pavilions and the rest of the site leaves me kind of wanting for something a little more deferential to that on this building. It is quite modern. And though I think it's an attractive building, I think if there's something to relate to, it'd be a little bit better. From an aesthetic standpoint, the gridded kind of front face, the tiled front face, if you will, to me that leaves that's something that doesn't speak well to me. So if you'd studied that, there we go. I think it looks good in your 2D elevation, or decent in your 2D elevation, but your three-dimensional elevation kind of shows some of its weakness of it in design. I see how you got to it, but it may be as simple as a color change, which would really help me out in accepting that. But those are my comments. Overall, excellent.
Thank you, Mr. Kalinsky. Mr. McReynolds.
Yeah, I think this facility looks really beautiful. I'm not really an architect, so I think it looks really fantastic. I think it's a big upgrade to the area, and I would be very supportive of seeing this thing move forward. I don't really have any changes I would suggest.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Murray.
I think that it's fun. And I like the way you're trying with the colors to tie it into the picnic pavilions. I can't, not being an architect, I can't comment on the nuances of the design, but I kind of like the postmodern look because it ties well to picnic pavilions. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Orr.
I'm curious about the programmatic need for picnic tables next to the restroom. I think most people go in and then run as far away as they can get. I mean, I'm just not sure people are going to stop and picnic right next to the restroom. Just my opinion on that. And I too had a little trouble with the red tile, and maybe it's the proportions that we're seeing. I don't mind the light colored one and the proportions of those tiles, but the red, I'm not a fan of that one either. So anyway, those are my comments. And other than that, I like the story. Sorry, I'm getting feedback. And the roof, I do like those items. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Plumpy.
Well, okay, just to respond to your question about picnicking area beside the restroom, it all depends what you're eating, number one. So I was going to say that to me, I'm not the architect, I'm the landscape architect on the project, but I did provide the image way back. It seems like it's eons ago to the Park Service when they first came here, and I applaud you, Kelly, for giving the direction to the architect to do something more modernistic, and that was kind of a jolt for Mr. Mobley and
Mr. Beers.
Mr. Beers, thank you so much. I love the architecture. I have a couple functional type things. Since the roof is sloped, and someone already mentioned about when it rains, it pours, so to speak. The picnic areas are covered. To me, I don't mind the picnic areas there because sometimes people just want to hang. There's a place to wait. Maybe it's not necessarily a place to eat because you already have other picnicking areas, but it's kind of that place. Put stuff down, gather your belongings, and go in or something like that. So maybe it's not a picnic area, but it's the kind of area that if you wanted to wait for someone, if you have a large family, all right, not everybody can fit in that restroom, they're kind of hanging out. So it's like a bus stop, if you want to call it that measure. I would hope that there's good ventilation so people could sit there with no problem. So the drainage on the roof itself, it is sloped. Right now there's concrete, looks like there's concrete paving surrounding the whole building. So my concern is when the water splashes down from the roof, will that splash on the concrete? So it'd be interesting when you come back that you have detail of how you capture that rain. Is it a rain chain that the roof is designed in a way that the rain will go to a corner or to some area, or some series of rain chains perhaps to be more sustainable, go into a gravel cistern or something like that? Just a thought. Or the typical downslope. I thought the rain chain would be kind of interesting because it's something sustainable in these times. The furniture, I agree, it's a little dated. I know these are probably SketchUp model, off-the-shelf SketchUp model type things, but
that's true.
A lot more contemporary furniture that's out there that's dynamite with it, even colorful, add more color to it. And is there a drinking fountain proposal somewhere? Because
yes, that's the drinking fountain.
I didn't see it in the plan, but it's tough to see. So
yeah, it's there.
Okay, there it is. Okay, I see it. That's right. It's on that side. I was looking at the other side. All right, and it looks like it meets all the ADA compliancy. I know this will have a sidewalk from a parking lot area. Please make it ADA compliant, and perhaps you may want to consider having a bike rack close by because bikers will bike. And hey, I'm not going to park my bike in the parking lot. Maybe drive the bike up here, but provide some bike parking close by. And lighting itself, is there any light proposed for the exterior of it for safety? I know this is early on, but is that the light? There are light standards on there you show, or eventually I see there's sconces by the doors.
Yeah.
I'm just asking some general questions to make sure it's safe, and those are my questions. Nice job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Plumpy. Mr. Zellman.
I think it's a nice job. I think the only thing that I would echo is I do like the contemporary design, but I would echo that making sure there's consistency throughout. Again, I'm not an architect, I'm a lawyer, but it makes sense to me that if we're going to have a more modern design, that everything else around it be more modern as well. But I think it's a good idea.
Okay. My own comments are going to follow on some comments you've already heard. One is I think it's perfectly appropriate for new construction to be contemporary in design. Mr. Kalinsky and I think Ms. Orr both had some criticism of the red tile design. I think maybe that can be softened quite a bit by simply choosing a grout to make the kind of the super tile graphic less obvious. I think might help that. Then with regard to Mr. Kalinsky's comment about its roof form is quite distinctly different from that of the pavilions. One of the things that have caught my eye is that in the picnic pavilions, the vertical posts are painted red and they go all the way down to grade. And this one, you could help to draw them a little closer together simply by painting the vertical posts red, as they are in the pavilions. And I also wondered, why do you have the heavy concrete bases under the freestanding columns? I mean, it's almost like they're designed to be able to resist automobile impact or something. What's the basis for that?
So since this is kind of conceptual, so in my opinion, I just wanted to continue the mass of the building. I thought that having these long posts would look kind of weak, so they needed kind of a wide, big base to sit on visually. So that's what I was envisioning. Also, for those.
Okay, I'm sorry. Go ahead. Please finish.
Yeah, just those posts. Someone was asking about the drainage. I was thinking, I have a note here that these two columns, some of them can be used as downspouts from concealed gutter system on the low side. So somehow maybe we can have a concealed gutter system here inside here somehow, and I can detail it to have downspouts through or just next to these posts. Maybe go under, or I can work it out with a civil engineer. But yeah, the answer to this is just visually, it seems it looks stronger.
Okay. Then with regard to that, I tend to agree with you that the columns seem a bit spindly. Maybe if you simply made the columns a little more robust, a slightly larger diameter, and then carried them down to grade, they would be closer in physical dimension to those in the pavilion, and again, maybe help to match a little closer. Looking at the floor plan and the arrangement of the toilet facilities, I note that there's no bathroom that might be identified for transgender people. And I'm wondering, is that part of the program or what?
No, these are family rooms for like people who have kids, for example. I know that this is a struggle with, like from my experience with families who have kids, and sometimes they just need to take more than one kid with different gender just to use the restroom. So they can't leave them go by themselves, and they can't go with them. So I just
No, I understand. I understand the family bathroom concept for taking different sex children in and to take care of their needs. I'm thinking of transgender adults.
I believe that this is Kelly from Park Authority. I believe that our feeling is no one's going to be monitoring the bathroom. So if you feeling whatever you're feeling that day, you can use either gender bathroom. No one's going to.
Okay, right. I just wanted to make sure that was something that y'all had thought about and such.
We actually did discuss it. They asked the question, and we just decided there's not going to be a bathroom monitor. If whatever you're feeling that day, you can use either one. And then if you don't like either one, the family one's there as well.
Okay. Then with regard to the drinking water facilities, they're not really called out or detailed, but it might be nice to have a facility that would be able to fill water bottles, not just being a drinking fountain? And also, is there a place to rinse things off? Or do you have to take something into the bathroom and use the sink to be able to rinse things off?
Generally, you'd have to go into the bathroom. We generally don't like to have outdoor spigots because people will start using them for other things or just washing cars and changing oil. And
Right. Okay. Just from a practical standpoint, I can certainly empathize with that. Okay. Those are my comments. Anybody else have last minute comments based on hearing everyone else's?
Mr. Burns?
Yes.
I think I just want to echo, I think you gave some really good suggestions to try to marry the modern approach to this design with the existing structures. And while I appreciate our architect's concerns about trying to be sensitive to some of the other structures, I do think we can try to stand out a little bit, and that's okay. So I think if you take some of those hints to call from some of the other themes there, this could be a very, well-designed, very utility purpose structure. So hopefully we, look forward to that. So thanks so much.
Okay. Well, thank you all for the presentation in this workshop session. And I look forward to seeing you guys presumably for an approval in a future ARB meeting.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for taking the time. We wanted this initial feedback, so we appreciate everyone's comments.
Okay. And again, thank you. Okay, the next workshop session is for ARB 20-BRB-01, proposal to provide dog kennels as an additional use and a new septic field located at 16001 Lee Highway in Centerville, tax map 063-2 1 Lot 8 in the Bull Run Bridge Historic Overlay District. And Mr. Mark Crane is here to present the proposal to us tonight. Mr. Crane.
Good evening. How is everybody?
We're good.
Okay.
I assume we're good.
Well, hopefully so. This proposal is going to be infinitely simpler than the last two that you guys went through. All that we're doing here is that the Fairfax Humane Society operates a kennel on this piece of property off of Lee Highway in the Sully district. They are trying to utilize the existing kennels on site to house dogs temporarily as they're being found new homes. And through the course of that, they found the septic system for the existing building was failing. And so it's taken about 6 or 8 months to find a new septic site out there. And so what they're doing, this is just to present the new location of the septic site to you guys and to ask for the, kind of the blessing on using the existing kennels to house the dogs temporarily. It's in the old, Bull Run Old Stone Bridge Overlay District. Although you can't see the property from Lee Highway, you certainly can't see it from the bridge. But it is inside the overlay district. So that's why we're here presenting this to you. Let's see if I've got something else that we could show. If we could show the overall, the overall. So I mean, right now, the pointer, the septic field is located right in this area right here where my pointer is, which is on the southern portion of the site, I guess, eastern portion of the site. And the existing buildings are right in this area here. There's no changes to the site, visual changes to the site.
Mr. Crane, could you please kind of describe it? Because we actually have our staff doing the having the presentation. We couldn't see your cursor. So I think the septic field is to the top right where a little dog legs out. Is that correct?
The septic is actually right in the area where it's the pointer is where it says site. Well, actually, it's actually opposite that. The portion of the property near the kind of directly opposite the arrow where it says site. We see the pointer.
Nicole, it's right where the tax map number goes through on that dog leg.
Yeah. Do you want me also to pull up the other, the special exception plat? Would that sound better for you?
I think that would be better. Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Thank you.
That.
Sorry, I'm not.
Oh, no problem.
I
can zoom in a little bit on this.
Okay. So that's it. Again, like any other septic site, it's not gonna, you're not gonna see anything, but they are gonna have to disturb the soil there and disturb a little bit of area to run the drain lines from the tank and the pump over to the field from the house. And the existing kennels are right there in the middle of the site. So visually, other than dogs being in the kennels, there's going to be no changes.
Okay, well, thank you very much for that. Again, I will call a roll call of members of the ARB, and again, since this is a workshop, there is no public comment. Ms. Aubrey.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I guess I'm a little confused because based on my review of the materials and what was written in the agenda as what the application consisted of, my understanding was, it didn't mention anything about replacing a failed septic, unless I somehow missed that. But that this project application was about putting new additional dog kennels onto the property. So I guess I really need to have some clarification on what exactly is this application for, and if it is to create new drain fields somewhere on the property, then that area probably needs to be looked at by, or we need to have some contact with the county archaeologist to determine whether or not the area is free of any possible archaeological material.
Okay.
Ms. Aubrey, this is Laura. I did send the archaeological survey data form. Mr. Crane did fill it out. We just didn't get a response back by tonight.
Okay. And my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, is that these kennels are existing, but they're not currently designated for use as dog kennels. And so what you're asking for is to use existing kennels for dogs. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. So you're not constructing new kennels, you're getting an additional use permission.
Correct.
Okay. Okay. All right. Does that answer your question, Ms. Aubrey?
It does. And then another question, follow-up would be, are there any residences nearby on adjacent properties? And what would the people that own those residences think of having all the existing dog kennels all of a sudden be occupied by dogs?
Well, there is residences relatively nearby. It's not like it's downtown McLean or anything, but there are homes nearby, and we're going through all the proper procedures for the use permit amendment, with notification of adjacent homeowners, landowners. They'll be duly notified that this change is taking place. So they'll have their opportunity to comment on it.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Daniel.
Ms. Albury raised most of the questions I had. I think the application form is going to need to be updated a little bit. Maybe Laura can help you from a staff perspective as to, because I think the septic, there was a little bit of nuance in there. I follow what you're doing now that you've explained it. I don't have any comments other than what I agree with Ms. Aubrey's 2 points.
Yeah, I should have put the septic on the form, no doubt.
Okay. Ms. Huang?
Mr. Chairman, I do not have any comments.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kalinsky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I see no issue with adding dogs to the kennels from the historical review perspective, so I'm fine with this.
Okay. Mr. McReynolds?
I agree with Ms. Audrey. I was a little bit confused by, I thought this was going to be a new kennel as well. So that's good that it's just reusing the existing one. So I don't have any comments aside from making sure that they follow the procedures and, all those necessary procedures to actually make this a kennel. So I'm good with it. Thanks.
Thank you. Ms. Murray?
Sorry, I keep pushing the wrong button. I have nothing to add.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Orr?
I have nothing to add.
Okay, going through this quickly. Mr. Plumpy?
The only thing I was going to say, the gentleman said he'd like to put septic on the floor. I don't want to I don't have any septic stuff on the floor, if that's what he's alluding to, but maybe it's just a figure of speech, but I have no other comments. I'm fine.
Okay, I think he meant to put it on the floor at his, but in front of us for discussion, I think is what he meant by that.
I thought he meant put it on the form.
On the form, okay, okay.
I'm sorry. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, that's, we all certified that we could hear each other clearly at the beginning of the meeting, so apparently not 100% though. Okay, Mr. Zellman.
I don't have any further comments, thanks.
Okay, and my comments are pretty much the same as Ms. Aubrey's. If there's a need for an archaeological survey, it would be good to have the results of that before you come back to us for action. And to clarify that these are existing kennels and that the change is change in use of the existing kennels. Those are the only 2 questions that I might have. So I thank you very much for your time and coming and presenting this to us. And I assume that we will see you shortly, perhaps as soon as January next year for action.
Yes, sir. Thank you. Appreciate it. Have a good evening.
Okay. Next thing up on the agenda tonight is a presentation to us on the Judicial Center Master Plan, and an update and a PowerPoint presentation. And Ellen Von Holy Bronson and Kim Callahan are here to present that to us.
Actually, John, this is Laura. Joan Beecham's going to present to us, but
okay.
It's not a problem. I will give her the presentation. Okay, Joan, here you go. All right, whenever you're ready.
So I'm here to give you a presentation on the Judicial Complex Master Plan. My colleague, Ellen Van Holly Bronson, is also on the line. She came to you most recently in July to talk about some of our concepts and our process. Ellen is retiring at the end of next week. So this is actually her passing the torch on to me. As we wrap this up, I will be taking it forward.
So for those of you that aren't familiar with the site, this is the almost 48-acre site in the very middle of Fairfax City. It's bounded on the north by Main Street, on the east by Chainbridge Road and Judicial Drive to the south. Just to give you some bearings, this is the Fairfax County Historical Courthouse. This is our current courthouse. And then on the very west of the site, we have our Burkholder Administration Building. And right across the street from that is the post office. So I know that you've seen this slide before, but it's a good place to start as far as reviewing the master plan framework and the scope of work. It included coordination with the surrounding community, including Fairfax City and George Mason University. We've completed a site infrastructure analysis. We've looked at the integration of the historic structures on the site and how they can fit into a new urban community. We've coordinated a long-term plan to meet the multiple stakeholders on the site. This has provided us a roadmap for future funding and a phasing plan. This effort has given us the opportunity to have a dialogue about the trade-offs and the challenges and all the opportunities that we have on this site. And we've also looked at possible public-private development opportunities. And the way most of this was done is over the last 2 years, there have been a series of community meetings and work sessions. Fortunately, we were able to start before the pandemic, so we got about half of it done in person, and the rest has continued this year virtually. The master plan priorities that were set up by the land use development team were 4. Just to let you know, the land use development team included all the stakeholders that will eventually be on the site, as well as city and county planning staff. So their priorities were to sustain a judicial complex that is safe and secure for the visitors and the employees, to create a welcoming and accessible complex designed to efficiently facilitate access and interaction with the county-wide judicial and public safety functions that is compatible with the surrounding community, to respect the integrity of the on-site historic resources and to enhance the public experience of those resources, and to identify possible public-private partnership opportunities for some of the secondary uses. We had a 5th priority that was identified by the county leadership team, and that was to look at the available development capacity on the site for future consolidation of lease space for additional county programs. So this is a list of the stakeholders on the site. As you can see, most of them are court-related or public safety-related. We had a few human service stakeholders, and the intent is to increase the presence of some of the human service agencies on this site, as well as to bring in some commercial uses. If I've neglected to say, this is a 20-year plan, so many of these uses won't be on the site in the near future. So this is a graphic that basically talks about what buildings will be preserved and what buildings will eventually be replaced. The buildings that are shown in blue will be preserved. And of course, they include our historic courthouse, the existing courthouse, and the 2 detention centers. And for the next 20 years, we will be keeping the newer and the larger of the 2 parking garages, which we refer to as parking garage B. The buildings that are intended to be removed and eventually replaced are the large parking garage A, the police evidence storage building, the Burkholder Administration Building, and then the damaged wings on the historic courthouse. So this is actually our final concept plan. We have incorporated the city's grid plan. We are extending South Street into the site, as well as extending West Street the whole way into the site, and basically creating a promenade so that you can see or you can better see the main entry to the courthouse. Another defining element of the master plan is this new central green that runs east-west. It basically divides the site between the most secure portion of the site to the south and the less secure portion of the site to the north. And then the other highlight that we see on this plan is the creation of a green around the old historic courthouse to give that historic building some breathing room. And we're going to provide it with a new rear entry to improve the access to that building. So we basically have 4 new buildings coming in here, as well as the development of workforce housing to the west of the site. These buildings, building 1, 2, and 3, are basically the phases that we see. And I will talk a little more about those when you look at this plan. So this is a view looking basically from Main Street. This is our first priority. This would be building 1. It will house the new police evidence storage facility, which is our most critical need right now, and it is the project that we have funding for. This building will also house additional space for the Commonwealth Attorney. Nonprofits that serve the courts will move from Burkholder closer to the courthouse where they want to be. And then this building will also have secure parking below. Building 2 will be one of the human service buildings. It will house the health department and the Office of Children. Building 3 is back here. It is a building that we don't currently have county uses outlined for, and we are looking for that to be a potential public-private partnership to bring on some new commercial uses onto the site. The 4th building is another human service building. It will be a diversion and community reentry facility, and it will do just that. It will take folks from the detention facility and help them with the reentry back into the community. So this is just the concept image looking down West Street, right at the entry of the courthouse. I don't know if you noticed on the plan, but the idea was that this would be a wider sidewalk to give an opportunity for potential farmers markets and festivals to happen on this site. This is another view of the main entry to the courthouse, and this is just a conceptual idea of how building 1 could potentially touch a new courthouse. Again, I want to reiterate, this is very early concept images. We haven't fully studied this yet, but we do hope to get to that early next year as soon as we're authorized to move forward. This is a view from the west, looking up that main central green towards the city. One of the things that terminates at the end of the central green, I'm not sure if you can see it, it's right here. It's our new location for the Legato School. The Legato School is now currently located right on 123 in front of the courthouse. And we would like to move it here to our historic quarter of the site. The last image I have is of a potential concept for the new rear entry of the courthouse. One of the things about this rendering is it doesn't show something that's very well known to be needed, and that is ADA access. So again, this is conceptual. We wanted to just show you that when those wings come off, there will be some type of new rear entry planned, and certainly when we get to that point, we will be back to talk to you. So the last slide, I just want to go over some of the cultural resources that are in development or recommended for our capital improvement program. I know that the historic jail replacement has come before you. I just want to let you know the design is moving forward, and we're hoping to go to construction early next spring. We've recommended for the CIP to have the courthouse grounds renewal project move forward. That would include the demolition of the damaged wings and Sallyport. It would also include a new pedestrian walkway along Main Street and 123. Further along in the phasing would be a full building renewal of the old courthouse. That will be a much more costly phase. It would include the replacement of many of the old systems, as well as a pretty extensive exterior restoration. And again, that's when we would work on the new rear entry on the west side. And then the last is, I just want to reiterate that large green open space around the historic elements that we're working on creating sort of the historic corridor at the front portion of the site. So the next steps are our final master plan reports are currently under review. We are going to begin to present this master plan to the community early next year. And as I mentioned, we hope to begin concept studies on that first building as well. We have a pretty extensive web page. A lot of these images are on that web page, as well as this presentation will be posted there. And the link is there for your information. And you feel free to call me or email me if you would like any additional information. So at this point, we're open for questions. And again, I just want to thank you for all your input. You've been with us for 2 years now, and I'm sorry to see Ellen go, but looking forward to moving forward. Thank you.
John, you're muted.
Okay, let's try this again with unmuted. Thank you, Ms. Beecham. I appreciate that, and congratulations to Ms. Bronson on her upcoming retirement. We wish you well. As I have with other presentations, I'm just going to go through the roll call and ask if members of the board have comments or questions. Ms. Aubrey.
I don't have any questions for the presenter. Thank you very much. It looks like a very ambitious plan.
Okay, Mr. Daniel.
Well, one of my first questions would be, are there any task force initiatives associated with this that the ARB could be taking part of in the future? I see that you now plan to study the first building, and the ARB has started to realize that the many initiatives that the county undertakes usually include task force at a community level and involving an ARB member in that conversation, and then any said task force might be helpful. So I guess that's one question to Ms. Beecham.
Well, there certainly were a lot of community engagement opportunities for the master plan. The next step is really just a conceptual plan and cost estimate for building one. It's relatively preliminary. I'm not so sure that a task force would be set up for that. But certainly before we moved forward with more detailed design, there would definitely be community engagement. So I'll make a note of the task force.
I might encourage then in the future as this progresses, if those opportunities present themselves, that consider this an expression of interest, at least by mine, and I'm sure by other board members, that if there is that opportunity to participate, we would be glad to lend our expertise to those discussions and help make this a very successful endeavor.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
John, I guess my other question, and maybe I'm going to steal Lisa's thunder, is I really feel like the Judicial Center is becoming a historic overlay district in everything but name only, and I feel like we might need to start engaging staff and finding out if that's something that we really need to be considering here. And
I have some comments that I will make at the end that will probably be similar to what you just said.
Very good.
Okay.
That is, obviously, I think I expressed my two key concerns. Please continue to keep us involved. And John, I think you've got an idea where I'm going then. All right, thank you.
Ms. Huang.
Mr. Chairman, I have no comments.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Kalinsky?
Yes, Mr. Burns, I'm kind of encouraged. One point on the plan that I'm encouraged by is how the historic courthouse is going to be visible pretty clearly on all sides now. So that's my one observation. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. McReynolds?
I was just wondering what you're doing to try to promote the private-public associated with that one building. I guess it was the fourth building. So could you comment on that?
I can. Yes, that's actually going to be a phase down the road. But essentially, the way that would work is that we would end up putting out an RFP with some general guidelines. It would be a pursuit that we would put out.
Are they going to help fund some of that, or is it going to be, how is that funding going to work?
You mean the county would fund?
Is the county going to fund the whole thing, or is it going to be partially by the private owners of the building?
The intent is that it would be a partnership, partially funded through county funds and partially through private.
Okay, that sounds good. I don't have any objection. I really like the fact we're upgrading it, and I think it looks beautiful. I do think we have to make sure you get the ADA, make sure it's all ADA compliant, and make sure it's really and areas that are not currently can be upgraded at the same time. So other than that, I don't have any other comments. It's like a great upgrade for the county.
Thank you. Ms. Murray?
I don't have any comments. I saw these slides last week in a presentation given by Ms. Bronson. Ms. Beecham, you do a wonderful job as well. My reaction was that we should follow up on Jason Sutton's request that it's become a historic overlay district. And I fired off an email to John, so I'm assuming we'll hear more about it later.
Okay. Okay, Ms. Orr?
I have nothing further.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Orr. Mr. Plumpy?
No major comments. I think it's great that something's happening on that property. I drive by a lot. It sounds like this will be something similar to what the Lorton Prison was for the Lorton Arts Foundation. Is that true, Mr. Burns? Because this is county-owned property with a public-private partnership.
Good question, although I think that would only apply for the building that they're proposing the public-private partnership, which I think is building 3 on their drawing.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I meant to say that it'd be something similar to how the ARB viewed the Lorton Arts facility, meaning that it's a special project that the county has that we would get pretty involved with. That's another.
I think that would be up to the Board of Supervisors to determine whether or not they want us involved.
Okay.
But we'll have to wait and see on that one. Mr. Zellman.
Yeah, certainly a project that I'm interested in as the lawyer representative on the board and someone who owns a business just down the street from this project. So the any opportunities in the future for the board and me to be involved, I would certainly be interested in.
Okay. And I have a couple of questions and comments. An observation, the rendering you showed of the rear elevation of the historic courthouse, which you said would be ADA accessible, only showed a staircase leading up to it. I didn't. So
Yes, we noted that.
That's ironic. I'm sure that was something that you're going to take care of, but that was there you go.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's okay. That was one thing that kind of caught my eye. And then with regard to current parking garage A and the Police Archives Administration building and parking garage B, there is a serious dip in the topography there that seems in your renderings to have disappeared. So is there an extensive amount of regrading being proposed here? Because garage B's on-grade entrance is at a considerably lower height than the new street that you're proposing to clip. So how does the topography work with the renderings, the current topography work with your proposed renderings?
I completely understand what you're saying. And I think working out that topography is something that we will refine as we move forward. I guess what you're saying is you feel like some of the renderings are a little misleading because it looks too flat.
Well, it may reflect what is being proposed. But I'm just saying it's not the current reality.
Yeah, we're definitely not proposing to completely regrade the site. We're working within the existing topography. And we know that there is quite a slope in the site, as it goes up into the city. So.
Right. I know that especially because I've had to walk from garage B to the courthouse when it was icy out. And that is a treacherous walk. So that's just an observation there. Then I also will note that the Police Archives Administration building, I believe, is the same architect who designed the Massey building. And if you go to that building and you go in the front door and you look to the right, there's a plaque on the wall that lists the architect's name. Off the top of my head, I can't remember it. I do remember that when I was there, I asked if I could take a picture of it, and they got real huffy at me that I was casing the joint or something, and they wouldn't let me take a picture.
I think it was Vosbeck.
Was it Vosbeck? Yeah, I suspected that was the case. And then, so I would regard that as a potential example of the county's mid-century design excellence efforts. And that building, I wouldn't just simply dismiss this as, oh, it's nothing, it can go away. Similarly, the current Burkholder building, which the county just totally reglazed. They replaced all the windows in it just, a year ago? And so that, to lose that without a moment's thought, I think is something that's a little short-sighted. Now, having said that, we have a very historic courthouse in the one corner facing into the downtown of the city of Fairfax. And then we also have kind of mid-century buildings that some people, maybe me, might think have some historic merit. But you have an overall county-controlled campus that is being redesigned, and it might be a good idea to look at that in the broader context of the evolution of the county and its buildings over time. And Ms. Murray's suggestion that this may be a possible historic overlay district where decisions such as you're proposing here in this master plan might be looked at from a historical perspective as well as a county, how many square feet do we need, a kind of planning perspective. Certainly there's a lot of effort that's evident in these renderings that you're trying to integrate the new construction with the existing construction. I don't think anyone will lament the loss of Garage A. It's kind of the, Prince Charles would call it the carbuncle in the middle of the campus. And so that's I don't think you have any objection to removing that. But the overall evolution of this county government center is something that I think needs some careful study and thought given to it as it represents the evolution of the county from a little government complex represented by the original courthouse to the vastly larger modern courthouse and other facilities around the site. So that broader context, I think, needs consideration, not just as a planning study, but as a historical representation of the county's evolution. So those are my comments. So is there anyone who's listened in among the board members who's listened to all the other comments that want to add anything? Ms. Murray, do you want to add anything with regard to proposing a historic overlay district?
I understand that Laura Arsenault has done some research on the subject, so I would defer to her advice.
Thank you, Elise.
I have a question also. When you're talking about the historic overlay district, are you talking about just the quadrant where the old courthouse is, or are you proposing the entire 48 acre site be in a historic overlay district?
I am thinking of the 48 acre site. If you remember, I described mid-century buildings that might have some historical merit as well. So I'm talking of the entire site.
Thank you.
John, I would assume that part of the endeavor here would be to study that decision when we went through that process, and we would ultimately reach an answer on that through the process of determining that. So,
right. Me suggesting it is there's very little weight in the county.
John is a powerful man. I'll acknowledge that, but he doesn't breathe HODs into life. I do think it's critical that we start looking at this, and that's why I also brought up the point about any initiatives that the county's undertaking with design. The sooner the better, that I think involving the ARB members in those discussions where they can be involved. We don't want to be the last folks at the table telling you why we disagree with something when we could easily be some of the first folks to suggest ideas early on. We want to be helpers, I think. So.
Right. And then also the one slide that we still have up on the screen notes, or actually it doesn't note, but it points out the fact that the two lots that are behind Building 2 and Building 3 are not part of this complex. And if you notice, the FAR, the floor area ratio for the massing of those two buildings is like really big. And it's right across from the Trudeau Church. But apparently there must be some by right capability to build a building with that massing. And so that's something I would encourage the county to try and talk to the city and or the private property owners there about trying to mitigate the potential impact of buildings that large right next to right behind the courthouse.
Yes, those conversations are ongoing.
Glad to hear that. Very glad to hear that.
So a couple things. A lot. Nicole and I have been involved on this with Ellen for 2 years almost. We've been doing outreach with them and kind of talking to them about all these similar issues. We did ask them to do a survey of an architectural survey of the entire site to document the buildings that were there, and we can provide that to you. They did talk about the different architects, the times the buildings were constructed, and we did talk about that evolutionary principle of the courthouse, Fairfax County Courthouse, from the one-room courthouse in the corner kind of spreading out over the entire acreage. Our understanding from staff was that we were looking at putting a historic overlay. Our recommendation from staff is putting a historic overlay district on just the courthouse and the jail, not the entire 48-acre site. So that was staff's recommendation kind of after going through this whole process with Capital Facilities. So if we wanted it, and it's up to the ARB's discretion because they are allowed to make, a historic overlay district recommendation, or to ask the board to make that. But I would recommend reading that report of all the architectural survey information before we kind of go down that route and determine exactly what we want, if we really want the whole 48-acre site, or if we really just want the historic courthouse and jail to be in the historic overlay district.
Well, I'm very glad to hear that you have already done a survey. That would be the first step no matter what. So if that's already done, it's like, yay, we're halfway down that road already. Can you share that with the members of the ARB? Okay,
Yes.
And with the master planning folks, or do they already have it?
No, they did it for us. We asked them to do it, and they did it on us.
It's actually an appendix to the actual master plan report that is being finalized as we speak, and we're hoping to get the final before Christmas, before I leave. So, and that historic, all the architecture, cultural resources report is very extensive, and it is a part of the entire master plan report. So,
okay, that would be very helpful to have that document. And it may be that we will draw the same conclusion that Laura suggested that staff has drawn, which is just the courthouse and jail. And when you say courthouse and jail, I assume you mean the historic jail, not the contemporary jails, right?
Most likely, yes. Most likely it would be the historic courthouse, the historic jail, and then Legato School, which is on that block. You know, that kind of top corner.
Right, in that corner. Okay. Okay. All right. Well, that's. I'm relieved to hear that the county has moved forward with the survey, which means that the question I raised is already partially answered. So, thank you for that.
And Nicole is lead on this project now. Nicole, did you have anything else you wanted to add?
I don't think so. I think you guys kind of covered it all. But yeah, if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out. Oh, I will say that, yeah, those buildings, those large buildings that are shown from the city, that is from their small area plans that recommend that height. But the city is working with us on any proposals that go there.
Okay, cool. All right, well, thanks everyone who participated in this presentation. And again, thank you, Ms. Beecham. Congratulations, Ms. Bronson. And we look forward to hearing from you again.
Thank you.
all right, thank you.
Okay, that presentation, that's all the big stuff we were going to discuss tonight. What remains on the agenda is board and staff items. And the first one is review and action on approval of the previous month's minutes, that is November of 2020. And I assume implied in that is approval of payment to the recording secretary as well. So are there any changes to the minutes that people need to make? Corrections?
Yeah, Mr. Burns, small thing, but on page 10 under proposal for new construction at the addition of the Langley Ordinary. Third from last line, materials, it's spelled clapboard with a question mark. It should be CLAPBOARD, clapboard.
Thank you. I did not catch that.
Okay. One small thing, that's it.
There's a man that reads our minutes really well.
Yeah. Okay. Any other corrections? Mr. Zellman, did you start to say something?
No, sir.
Okay. So you must have made a noise that it caused a little thing to pop up. Okay.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Daniel.
If you will entertain it, I have a motion.
I am all ears.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the ARB approve the November 2020 meeting minutes as presented and with proposed revisions proposed during this meeting and pay the recording secretary accordingly.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Mr. Kalinsky, thank you, sir. All in favor, say aye.
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 Aye. And all opposed, say nay. Hearing no objection, the minutes are approved and we have authorized payment to our recording secretary. Thank you. Next report is Treasurer's Report. And I note that Laura was able to include in the share file a little written statement as well. So thank you for that, Laura.
You're welcome. The balance as of December 1st, 2020 for the ARB was $21,667.82.
Cool. Any questions on the Treasurer's Report? Yeah, hearing none. Okay, good. Administrative items. First one is the Stemson House modifications to the deck and installation of a storage shed.
So the Stemson House is located, I'll give a brief summary, but they've provided a very good PowerPoint presentation and some written documentation that was very clear. Is a contributing structure in the Lorton DC Reformatory and Workhouse area. And they are proposing to upgrade the deck that's on the site. This is part of the resident curator program, and the tenant is doing some upgrades to the property. So he's upgrading the rear deck and porch, and also installed a new shed on site. And so none of the proposals required a building permit. He was just refacing the deck and putting new, I guess, enclosing some of the deck materials. So none of them rose to the level of a permit for the county. So it definitely wouldn't come to the ARB, but this is just for your information. If you see work going on out there, this is what that would be. So I just wanted to make everyone aware of that. And if you have any questions, we can reach back out. But it's very exciting to see the resident curator program happening and moving forward.
Okay, is the Stemson House the house that's on the way to the incinerator? It's off of Lorton Road on the way to the incinerator?
I think so. I was looking earlier, and it might be, it's not the one that's next to the Laura Hill Green. It's further, I think you're right. I think it's further towards the incinerator.
Yeah, it's kind of across from the equestrian center.
Yes.
Yeah, okay. Right, okay, cool. Glad to hear that's going forward. And also, I think that the chap who's doing the renovations there should be thanked for being diligent enough to bring that to your attention.
And a quick update, I was driving to, quick anecdotal, driving to my sister's who lives in Dumfries, and they were fixing the roof to the H40 building that we just approved last month. So that was very exciting to see them. That was the one right along Ox Road. So they're out there last Saturday fixing it up. So
Cool.
It looks really nice.
Good. Okay, the next thing, it's a slate for new ARB officers. I assume we have a report from the nominating committee?
Surprise.
Sure. The report is Mr. Daniel, Mr. Zellman, and Ms. Aubrey have all accepted their nominations and have not had any alternative nominations come forward. So I think we can move forward.
Okay, and they are for what positions?
Mr. Daniel for chairman, Mr. Zellman for vice chairman, and Ms. Aubrey for treasurer.
Excellent, okay. Okay, and there are any nominations from the floor? Seeing none, I will call the question. All in favor of the slate of officers for 2021, please say aye.
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 And all opposed say nay. Hearing none, the slate of officers has been elected. Congratulations to you all, and thank you for agreeing to step up and serve in leadership positions. Appreciate that. And I will, at the end of this meeting, where it says new and other business, I will symbolically hand the gavel over to Mr. Daniel for the January meeting. So, okay, update reports. Homes Run Acres?
Yeah, so again, just kind of checking along. We have our next work group meeting on next Wednesday, 6:30 p.m. We're going to start talking a little bit about design guidelines, kind of give them a sense of what they'll look like, kind kind of what Traceries has done so far with the overall design guidelines and the Holland Hills ones. And we will be in the process actually of awarding a contract for design guidelines for Homes Run Acres. So I'm just waiting on confirmation from our financial people to let the folks know that we're going to award it. And so that, which is great, because then we can start bringing whoever it is in early with the work group and make sure that we're getting all their information and concerns early on. So that is where we're at right now.
Thank you. Holland Hills.
Right, so Holland Hills, we just wrapped up our last, for right now, work group meeting last Monday night. We're aiming now for a larger community meeting, which we actually haven't had in 2 years, which seems like a really long time, but the last one was in 2019. It's going to be on January 25th, 2021, and we're going to talk about and present all the findings that we have so far, including the proposed boundaries of the historic overlay district, contributing and non-contributing properties, as well as our zoning ordinance amendment language, comprehensive plan amendment language, and our draft design guidelines, which is a lot and a little at the same time. So we will have that meeting virtually, of course, and details to be determined, but there will be a mailing going out to, I always say, almost 500 property members in the beginning of January, and with all that information, and most of it's going to be available. It's going to be a one-page mailing, and to direct them to our website to be able to review all that documentation.
Okay.
But yeah.
Okay, River Farm update.
So River Farm, since we last met, has been going at a light speed. It was authorized by the Board of Supervisors for research on November 17th, 2020. And then they want to have it on an expedited schedule, which means they want it to go back before the Planning Commission and the Board of Supervisors for consideration of approval by April, which means we have like negative time to work out everything happening with it. Wow. So Nicole and I are tasked with working on that. We went on a site visit last week, got some photo documentation, ground truthing, that type of thing. And we're in the process of pulling together kind of contributing features. And luckily and unluckily, this is going to be done before Holland Hills or Homes Run Acres, but it's going to be a very, very quick process. So when we come to you with frantic eyes and our heads spinning around, you'll know why.
We'll get a nice trial run for Holland Hills.
Right.
Right.
Right. And as you all know, the American Horticultural Society is selling the property. There's a lot of buzz from many, many, many different groups. Northern Virginia Conservation Trust. I just got an email from them today. So, of course, anything you see or hear, please feel free to forward or have them contact Nicole or myself as well. But yes, we will be doing also very limited outreach on this one because it's only one property owner, and it's more of the community at large. So we'll have one community meeting, but we're not going to be doing, there's no task force or work group associated with this one. It's just going to be a very quick process.
Wow. Okay. Confederate names.
So Denise Dressel in the History Commission presented, what day? Okay, it's Thursday. Okay, so Tuesday they presented to the Board of Supervisors Land Use Committee with the completed inventory of Confederate names inventory. And Denise, please feel free to jump in if you'd like to. But it was well received. I think it was over 500 pages and countless hours by History Commission and Denise working on it in a very, very short timeline from July to basically October before we had to wrap it up and start putting it together. So yeah, it went really well. There's some follow-up on how streets will be streets identified to change, how that will work, who's in charge of that, which is really VDOT and some other groups. But the next steps are really, it's going to depend on what the Board of Supervisors wants to do with this list. The History Commission did not make a recommendation. It's really just a research tool for them to start with. So it's basically an inventory and a survey of of what we have those names in the county.
Wow, a lot of work.
And you have it on your share file so you can look at it.
Yeah.
It's an overwhelmingly impressive collection of information.
And see the methodology and the immense amount of work that Denise was involved in it, Kira was involved in it, Liz Kroll and Chris Barbershak of the Virginia Room also did an immense amount of work on this, in addition to various History Commission members and volunteers.
And to your point, Chris, this will be housed in the Virginia Room when it's a copy will, when it's as a resource for research, because it was very, very thorough and detailed.
Cool. Okay, Gum Springs.
So Gum Springs has got a lot going on right now as well. We're moving forward. Denise, I think we've talked about before, wrote and received a CLG grant from BDHR. And with that, we're working for, we got an RFP approved and contract started for the Pride of Fairfax building and looking at it as a National Register nomination for that building. So that's what the CLG grant will be for. And then there's a second kind of follow on. I think I mentioned this last time that Supervisor Stork asked to get additional funding for the Gum Springs area. And so Denise we call that phase 2, but that will be kind of a survey effort and working with the community to gain oral histories and things like that, as Gum Springs is a much more cultural landscape rather than an architectural landscape. So yeah, but there's a lot happening and that's really long overdue.
Excellent. The Reston survey.
The Reston survey is chugging along as well. That was a survey done with a cost share grant, but done completely by VDHR. And there's a community meeting on January 5th. And Chris, if you can, and Samantha, I would recommend that you attend just because of the kind of coordination with the task force at some point, with the Reston Comp Plan task force that we'll be using. So if you could attend that, that would be very helpful.
Do you have information you can share on it?
I don't have on the exact, I know it's going to be January 5th and it's going to be virtual in the evening. I don't have.
I will say, I think there was an interest by the task force to have some kind of presentation in the future from planning staff. So that's after this, it might be time to start thinking about that point.
Yeah, we discussed that, and this is the community meeting to satisfy the VDHR requirement for the grant, and then we would bring it to the task force at a later time.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was saying.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, rezoning cases?
Denise mentioned a couple that were going to come in for some inventory sites for the resident curator program and some special exceptions. I don't have anything of note specifically for historic overlay districts or for the ARB.
Okay. Other? I don't know what that might be.
Just if anybody had anything else, or Nicole or staff had anything else they wanted to bring up to discuss that I didn't put on the list.
I don't have anything else.
Okay, cool. Okay, correspondence, announcements. I guess we'll start with old business, historic versus contributing discussion.
So this is just following up from last month's discussion. I want to make crystal clear that we all agree and or possibly put a motion forth about whether or not we want to use get rid of the historic wording in our upgrades or keep it in there, because I want to make sure as we're rewriting the design guidelines that we have a clear path for our consultants of what words to use and how our maps need to be done. So we don't necessarily have to do the decision tonight, but I need like a clear answer sooner rather than later. So I think we kind of sided with, and Elise, thank you for putting all that information together, but that most of it, historic and contributing, meant the same thing for the historic overlay districts, other than one was not more historic than the other, but it was like the defining historic feature and the other one was not. But from the staff perspective, we treat them as the same. So really moving forward, I need some guidance on if the ARB would like to make a motion or just make clear that we would like to remove the historic wording, or we want to keep it and defer that decision to a later time, because with all these updates happening, I just want to, this would be an opportunity for us to do that. Any general thoughts?
I've given it some thought. I think that in terms of the ordinance, we should drop the historic wordage and just call everything contributing. But in the guidelines, and it's sort of set that out that way in the Bull Run Stone Bridge one, and I assume the rest are going to be the same, that sort of the history of the development would include the ones that was the term sustained the creation of the district, and then we could move on and describe the rest of the trees. So that would be part of the guidelines process, but not part of the ordinance process. Is my thinking, and that's my impression of that's the way. Some 20 years ago, Bruce Trubisky and the rest of the Heritage Resources branch staff wanted to go at the time, or were constrained because of the one part of the ordinance that's still called out historic.
I'm inclined to agree with Elisa's suggestion. I mean, it's implied by the entire nature of everything we're doing that it's historic, so it feels like just using contributing simplifies what is become a, thankfully to her sage identification, simply a word challenge. So that would be my opinion too.
Yeah, I would tend to concur again with both of those comments, that if you call things in historic overlay districts historic, it's kind of redundant. So as Chris pointed out, it's implied that everything is historic, and the question is it contributing to that history or not? And so, I would go with contributing as the identifier for the buildings that are most significant within any HOD.
I think you're right, though, Elise, is that we get into that distinction more in the design guidelines of Langley Fork was founded on X, Y, and Z, and then Hickory Hill came in a later time, but it's still contributing to it's still a historic, it's still contributing.
And that's critical to know when we look at the district, if that was the reason the district was formulated was this property, then we should from its history know that. And that guidelines write-up, I think, is very helpful to, and I agree with Elise, if the guidelines are going to explain that for each HOD, then I think we're in a good place. But sorry, Michelle, I didn't mean to cut you off.
No, that's fine. Whichever word is the group feels is appropriate, I would feel comfortable going along with. But my only concern is that each of the properties, whether you call them historic or whether you call them contributing, they need to at least have a sentence or two that describes how they are contributing or how they are historic within the historic overlay district, because that's where the problem has been in the past, where we've had all those lists with just addresses, street addresses, and there's not even a sentence that describes why they're contributing. So, and the draft design guidelines that we've seen so far have gone on and on and on and on with discussion of the historic nature of certain resources. Well, I think they need to allow for some space in the guidelines to describe why all these other properties are also historic or contributing, whatever.
And right, and that's 100% why I want to try to nail this down, because if we're going to put new maps in there, doing contributing and non-contributing, and also a list of like an inventory, of course, that we can update from time to time as resources are added or deleted or whatnot. But I want to make sure that we can give them that guidance and make that decision clear of, like you said, this, or like, the founding building, the founding historic property for the district was Sully. And then everything else, or the founding district, well, Woodlawn's a good one, is the founding was Woodlawn and Pope Leahy House, but they're two completely different historic time periods. So I think that I just want to make it crystal clear for our consultants so that we can nail that down and that we have a consensus. And then we would go back, we could go back and change the zoning ordinance at a later time to strike, to match our design guidelines.
Well, Michelle, you get at a larger problem that we're going to have to deal with regardless, whatever the terminology is that we have some things that we're treating as contributing. And I think that's really what I want to lean on is we need to make sure they actually are contributing. But I think, Laura, are you looking for us to say something to the effect that we move to strike the word historic from the usage and the guidelines language and instead consolidate it under the term contributing?
If we have, and I don't necessarily need a motion, but I just need like a general consensus moving forward because we kind of left it open-ended last time. And I just wanted to, if we want to just use contributing with the understanding at some point, we would go back and remove historic to match our updated design guidelines and things like that. That's fine. I just want to make sure that I basically have the consensus of the ARB to tell our consultant, don't use the word historic, use contributing, because that's what we're trying to clarify what's going on.
I mean, John, you could call a straw poll basically or something to assess if everyone's fine with it, just to confer.
It's fine. That's fine.
It might be easier if we actually had an example, because the Bull Run Stone Bridge was an unfortunate one for them to choose to begin because it only has one resource, which is clearly the whole is historic, and that's why we have that historic overlay district. But there are many other historic overlay districts that have many contributing properties that don't describe what they are. So maybe it would be easier for us to make that decision if we could look at just one example of a district with contributing properties, currently contributing properties in it, and how would it read, and would we be satisfied with that language if we got rid of the word historic and just went with contributing?
I want to point out, Michelle, that the old guidelines did describe why these properties were contributing. I think our problem was nobody read them, because I went back and looked and found a description of why everything was there in the old 1992 guidelines. So I think we need to not fall into the trap we found with the old ones of not bothering to read them, just turning to the guideline portion and not reading the description.
Yeah, and if this is Jason, if I can just back up what Elisa's saying, I think whatever we decide, it's really important, especially when it comes up with these new districts that are coming up from a legal perspective, that we're consistent, that it's clear what is defined and what we're referring to. And if that descriptive language is in there about what's a contributing, that this is contributing versus historic, that's fine. It's got to be clear that that's what we're doing and that that's what our intent is to do. And have that language be consistent throughout.
So we could defer and ask them to do, for example, like Langley Fork or something, or Sully or something that has the distinction. They did Bull Run Bridge because it's easiest, Michelle. That was the first, the least amount of probably public backlash if we made changes. But yeah, and they're supposed to have, I think they're coming back in February with another couple historic overlay districts. So maybe we defer it until that point. But I just want to be able, if we give them the go ahead, to take out the historic part and start putting in the non-contributing, we could kind of come back in a couple months to do that. I just want to make sure that give them some pathway to move forward on, so they don't start splitting everything up and make more work for everybody in the long run. So no, but I think that's a great idea of getting the actual example of the ones we need. Like Drainsville Tavern, I think probably has some. Woodlawn definitely has some.
Yeah, Laura, is a scan of the 92 guidelines documents, like the core document, available on the website? Because I couldn't find that. I could find the individual ones.
The scan of the core is not on the website.
Because the only reason I have that is Linda, bless her, gave me that orientation book with them. And that's the only way I've been able to pull it out like a Bible sometimes and go, well, according to the core guidelines.
So that's like it's kind of like what we're doing now.
Yes.
But they were never used because they were a separate document and weren't, attached to each, they weren't attached to each set of guidelines. So when you give out the guidelines, you just give out Langley Fork instead of the original ones plus, the overarching ones plus Langley Fork.
I'm fine with waiting as long as it doesn't create more trouble for the contractor, because I really think in the end we're going to try to reduce this to a singular type of does it contribute or does it not? And we may need to sort out that if there is a property that doesn't have a lot of detail about it, like we dealt with in previous scenarios, then we'll have to assess that. But I just don't see the benefit of the two distinctions we had before. It didn't serve any purpose. So that's my only thought on it.
I would say, to Michelle's point, though, and it's a good one too, is to let them I would give them the guidance of saying, we're moving forward with just using non-contributing and not historic at that. But it's a major, that's what I'm taking away from this. And then when we get to the ones that have that, we can scrutinize it a little bit more on, because if they have to make new maps, which they're doing for us, and the lists and everything, it would be really helpful just to tell them, okay, we're not doing historic. We're just doing whatnot. And even for me, I'm looking at the Langley Fork on my other screen, like it says Hickory Hills historic, but it doesn't match to the founding of why Langley Fork, it does, but it doesn't. So it's just kind of like, even looking at the maps is very unclear. It's either going to be a bigger threshold to fill or not. So I think I'm going to give them the guidance of move forward with that, and then to Michelle's point, go back and make sure we just have that language clear in each set of guidelines of what were the founding structures of it. Okay. All right. I'm clear. Thank you.
All right. Next thing up was a report out on the meeting that Mr. Daniel and I and members of the staff had with Chairman McKay. And I realize now that my notes are in another room. So, Chris, if you want to begin, I will go grab my notes from the other room.
Sure. The meeting went really well. The chairman was able to give us pretty much an entire hour of his time to talk about the ARB and talk about the various issues that we're dealing with. We gave a lot of praise to staff and how they've been handling the COVID-19 situation and how we've been striving to work through the way we've had to operate. We gave them a fairly extensive update on the amount of survey initiatives going on around the county, and so much so they even asked, like, well, are there places that you think we need to look at even? So, I mean, I obviously continue to advocate for Reston, that the survey we're doing right now is just a glance. And then John pointed out that there's a county-wide deficiency going on, and that we are slowly but surely piecemealing it, but obviously the more support, the better. And we also did a lot to echo support to the planning and Department of Planning and Zoning, and that the more staff they could support, aid us and our efforts, the better, because these things aren't going away. We talked about the HODs, and obviously there was a lot of interest in River Farm. And making sure that moved rapidly, and we indicated that we're obviously going to be supportive for that initiative. Beyond that, the last thing we talked about was a task force and engaging us in various initiatives. And he also seemed very supportive of that, and obviously continued to echo that we keep seeking that where we can at our individual district level. And so it turned it a little back on us that if you're knowing something's going on, we should be reaching out to the individual supervisors. But we also turned it back on them saying, you need to let us know about some of these so that we even know they exist. But overall, it was a good call. Laura, I don't know if you have any other observations to add from it. I'm trying to save people's time because it's almost 9:30. And
the only thing, and I wanted to bring it up, but sometimes there's it was too short of a time to do it, is that, all the ARB members are at-large members. So we don't have one representative for each district like some other workforces and things like that. And to be honest, I have very little interaction with people in Mason District because there's no historic overlay districts in Mason District. But there are initiatives that are like spearheaded by the Mason District Supervisor and task force so we need, so to that point, there needs to be a little bit more of this kind of outreach and still we're not, and not like assigning someone to each district, but what I was hearing from them is that, there's a 1-for-1 for each of the task force, or, they have people, oh, well, my ARB member from Mason District is so-and-so, and I just tap them every time I want them to be on a task force. Well, we have 5 in Mount Vernon.
But some of them take ownership of us. And
oh, I know. Well, I'm not even going there because we had to.
Yeah, I know.
We had to do some horse trading with Jason Zellman coming on that I don't even want to know about.
But we definitely didn't get a no to us having that interest in task force.
Exactly.
And I will point out that is going to be a banner that I'm going to continue to run around with, because it's been eye-opening to just sit in on the Reston one and see what's going on there. And I just think about how many other ones, like John asked quite a bit about what was going on at the workhouse and how there were seen to be 3 different groups. And when the county staff started explaining it to us, they couldn't just really separate them all out for us at a moment. And we're like, well, that's half the problem when folks are coming to us. And we don't, if you had us on one of these groups earlier, we might help resolve some of these surprises that come up later. But John, I kind of ran through it as fast as I could given the time, but please feel free to get any more points you got.
Just a couple more things. Yes, they said that there was the Lorton Visioning Group, there's the Lorton Steering Committee, and then there's the county group. The county group, they said it again tonight, they said county leadership. And I said, what does that mean? Well, that's Rachel Flynn, who is the deputy county administrator, and John Mandora, I think that's the name.
Joe Mandora. So
yeah,
Rachel Flynn's our deputy county executive. Sorry,
right.
No, it's your thunder. She oversees planning, housing, and I think transportation.
Right.
And then Joe Mandoro, I think he's like, I'm not sure exactly what his title is, but it's like the people that all the people at the top.
Yeah.
So.
And one of the things, the surprising thing, Chris, you'll be interested in this, that the county is pursuing an agreement with the GSA to loosen up on the constraints on the Lorton site. They're trying to loosen the requirements in the MOA.
Which I assume would mean they're going to try to amend the agreement document then.
Yeah.
Because that would be the only way to do that. And I haven't looked at it in a while. Does that agreement have a duration?
I don't know. We'd have to dig it out and look.
Seems head shaking from Laura's. No, wow, we don't allow those to fly around anymore.
The memorandum of agreement. There's no sunset clause in that.
Wow. Oh boy. Don't do that anymore. That would be interesting to see if they were pursuing that, because that would probably require a full-fledged amendment to that document.
Well, they brought it up. We didn't ask. They brought it up, so they admitted to that. And then we also talked some about the need for a master plan for the Lorton Arts Center site. They have the approved plan that we approved in 2010 or 2013. That shows what they labeled in their presentation tonight as affordable workforce housing, mixed, something like that, which reality was when we approved it, that was going to be resident artist housing. So it's the same purpose, housing, but they've really retitled it for that. But that was, it was a good meeting, productive meeting. He gave us over 45 minutes of his time. And the meeting continued afterwards with Barbara Byron, and that's where we talked some more about Lorton.
It was nice to get some time to talk with her, because I think she took over from Fred, before the pandemic situation, if I remember correctly, but not much earlier than that. And there had not been a lot of time for us to interact with her even then.
Yeah.
It's been about a year since she took. She started like summer of 2019, I think.
Yeah.
It's been more than a year then.
Well, okay, here. Everything's by when my daughter was born. So she took over when I was on maternity leave when my daughter was born. So she's been in since summer of 2019.
And you reminded me, John, that was one thing we did bring up, was trying to have more regular meetings with her which I will indicate that Fred, when Jason and I had those conversations, was never very receptive to seeing me and Jason show up around his part of town. So I was happy to hear that Barbara had an interest in having that dialogue with us. And look, whatever you want to say about Fred, Jason and I really rubbed him the wrong way. We were troublemakers.
Yeah. And I also note Barbara Byron reminded me that she and I have met and that she actually lives in Holland Hills. So she noted my background in the meeting. So anyway, so that's the only other thing I wanted to add to what you had already reported. Thank you for taking that on while I ran and found my notes. Okay, are there new and other business? I see no one raising their hand or speaking up. So,
John, I think I just want to say, I know you're not going anywhere, but thanks for taking the chairman role for as long as you could for your term. I am nervous to fill those shoes in January, but I'm really appreciative of you doing that for as long as you did, because you've been a nice sound voice of reason.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that. It has been an honor to serve with all of you. I am very comfortable that the ARB leadership is in very good hands for the coming year. Thank you guys for stepping up and continuing to serve in an even more intensive way than you have to this date. So that's what makes this a good, activist, intelligent, and constructive board. Is to have good people. So that's a very important part of it. That being said, I guess my final action, I will pass the gavel, as it were, and wish everyone a very happy remainder of the month of December and whatever holidays you choose to celebrate. And by whatever means, stay safe and stay healthy, and look forward very much to seeing you again in 2021. So I will entertain a motion for adjournment.
So, Chairman, I move we adjourn.
Okay, a motion to adjourn is always in order. There's no need for a second. All in favor, say aye.
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 Good night, everybody.
Thanks.
Good night, guys.
Thank you, John.